joys and challenges. Can you talk about some of your biggest challenges that you've faced or had to overcome?
Yeah, keeping everyone on the same page, I think, can be really difficult at certain times. We're all running really hard. You know, everyone's working for some combination of some pay and some coupons. You know, so everyone's not well fed. Excuse me. Everyone's not well rested because we're running as hard as we can and loving every minute of it. We get some really great opportunities. Like we recently went to Synapse Innovation Summit in Tampa. I got to be on a panel there. The team built this amazing booth, and you've just got 10 people that are just all running really, really hard. And you don't always have the time to sit back and talk about, okay, what's our strategy? What's our objective for this? Like at every single level, right? You're just moving so fast. So I think finding ways to keep everyone aligned as much as you can on the same vision and on the same path, it gets really important. I would say that multiplies with software, just because you've got a lot of people building specific things to specific specifications, that are all counting on each other, right? And any part of the tower doesn't work, then it's going to fall. I'm sure there are other areas that are very difficult also, but that's been one of the things. We started off and we did like an hour daily morning meeting just to, we didn't really know all the things we needed to do, but I just kind of felt like we needed to spend some time together. I think people probably wanted a more structured time being spent with me together, which is probably fair.
But in the early days, there's a huge amount of value, right?
Yeah, and I don't think we saw it immediately, right? I think we saw, I've got something to do in 15 minutes, much, we see things loudly, but I think that was much more apparent. But then as we, just seeing the team work together, it's been wild, so it definitely worked. And to finding ways like that maybe are less traditional. We've had some that are much smaller too, or much shorter. But you've got to find some ways to get in front of that and really keep everyone motivated, even when it sucks. Even when you get bad news, even when third clinics say they don't want to do this, or like insurance doesn't cover it, they're not going to want to use it. So.
And key part of all of making a business is the product market fit. And a key part of the product market fit is getting out of the building and talking to users. Can you talk about your experience of user? And if you were at IQVIA, you could spend a lot of money and have a lot of time and a lot of research and make it very formalized. At a startup, you need to go quick and you need to reach out to those users, but really listen to them to build something that's meaningful, especially when you're building something that's kind of new to the market. So can you talk about the user study part of it?
I think it'd be really hard to build a good product if you're not in front of your customer, period. I won't say where, there's this term site burden, which refers to the trial site or the doctor's office or whatever. They can't have any more software, they can't have any more change, they can't, they're overloaded because they have multiple other vendors that they're trying to manage all this. And it's like, guys, there's no site burden. You're just making software that doesn't help them. They don't not need software that solves problems. They need software that isn't shitty. And you don't know that until you're asking them, until you're watching them as they go about their day, until you're noticing that the physician's office, it looks a little drab. So we started putting flower vases in one of them that have these little QR codes. So someone, if a patient's waiting, the waiting room, they're bored, they can walk up and scan it, and it puts what the heart we saw over there earlier, or several other ones, in their AR kit. They can play with it in the waiting room. I mean, it's kind of like elevator music, right? That same premise, but they're learning about their condition. In a future well-funded world, they're learning about their condition specifically. So instead of trying to cram more into a 20-minute doctor visit, you're making it fun, exciting, and empowering for a patient to be doing it on their own.
And if a doctor, there's a number has about 14 minutes to spend with their patient, right? And so if they want to connect with their patient, they want to be able to answer the questions that their patient has, but they can't. really are like, eye on the clock. And
Yeah.
so if the patient could have something that brings them a little further in understanding, then that frees up the most valuable time of the doctor, and maybe even the patients are coming in with better questions because they're not asking the basic ones because they've already gotten there.
Yeah, we had, I was doing some early work with a cardiologist and really just trying to like understand what's in his head, like what's in his life professionally, what does that look like? He's like, how many times a day I explain what a stent is? And it just like, oh shit, like you've got 20 minutes per patient, if you're lucky. Of that, you're gonna have to explain to someone what a stent is, how they would get it, is it, how is it gonna affect them, like how do they tell their family, all of these things before you even get to their specific condition.
Mm-hmm.
If you read the helpful tips online for managing physician burnout, it says very, very lovely things like try to make a rapport with the patient, which is true, but like how's the doctor supposed to do that in 20 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Like, back to back to back to back, like you had a day where you had 30-minute back-to-back phone calls all day? Mm-hmm. Were you ready to give medical advice at the end of the day? And I know it's not the same thing and it doesn't exactly translate, but I think the fault of no one will say with all the right intentions, I think problems in healthcare have been solved in a way over time that makes it very tough to nimbly solve problems. Mm-hmm. And a big part of what we're doing is trying to figure out how we can, approach value-based care for patients without using physician time, enabling them to do more. I hear a lot, Dr. Google, right? They hate it when their patients go and, do the Dr. Google thing. But like, I kid you not, most of the doctors pull up Dr. Google on their own phone to show the patient, like, what's going on. Because, there's the plastic skeleton in the corner, or maybe you've got the plastic heart on your desk. That's not everywhere, but that's still very, very likely the norm in most places. Mm-hmm. I just think there's so much that can be done, and no one studied the effect of an empowered patient on health outcomes for various reasons, I'm sure. But if things aren't being studied and there's not data that says it can help a situation, it'll never be prescribed, it'll never be followed, etc. So, if we can start to empower patients, there's tons of secondary research that suggests their outcomes will be better. But we start to be able to prove that, right? Mm-hmm. Which then, in my opinion, gets healthcare out of its own way a little bit and like helps them move more towards setting up the patients to be, more thoughtful of their healthcare in the first place, right? And then actually know what they can do or shouldn't do, right? And like what the outcomes of those would be. And mm-hmm. they've got time to think about it, to think of the questions that they're gonna have, instead of just kind of being shoved in there. And a lot of examples, like 20 minutes ago. So it's done a lot of amazing things. I'm not trying to knock healthcare or the fantastic advances. I just think this one area hasn't really advanced so much, and maybe it needs a little shove.
I am the XR entrepreneur in residence through Innovate Carolina, and the fine people of Innovate Carolina helped put on this event here today. So I was thinking about from UNC. You came from UNC. Some of the other people on your team came from UNC from different disciplines and backgrounds.
There's 2 of them back there.
A couple of them back there. Do you want to talk about how the university has been sort of affected in your pathway or your success?
Yeah, repeatedly, in very good ways. I went to UNCW for undergrad, so love Wilmington. It was amazing. Still live close to there. Will probably be finding myself near there for the rest of my life if I have my way. Chapel Hill, I got to experience as a kid growing up, but then also, when I went back to do my MBA, met a ton of people. Met a ton of people that I wouldn't have normally met in my social circles. And what I mean by that is like, it was sort of from the marketing track, usually you don't have marketing commercial people seeking out engineers and really, getting to know you, because they've got very different personalities. And one's going to be more, less specific and less direct. And, when you when you're getting into communicating with different personality types, right? There's a balance there. And so it helps with that, provided it's a safe space to really get to know some people. You can work on some projects together, and on those projects you're kind of pushed to like, it's a safe space. You can say whatever and not worry about feeling like a idiot in front of your boss. Some people embrace that. Some people probably stayed in their comfort zone a bit more, which is great. But so yeah, it helped from that perspective of really like opening me up, and I feel like giving me a different type of experience and network that I can rely on and call people when I need them, like yourself, Brian. And so there was that, right? And then I think even now it's funny as we start to get this going, UNC has been very supportive of helping give us a platform, helping us find resources, etc. We picked up our first UNC intern / part-time contractor,
Nice.
which is it's pretty great. I ran out of patience, and something happened with the internship program, and the student didn't really seem that worried about the hours, and I was like, look, I'll just pay you hourly. And like we can just get started with the fun stuff now, right? Like we don't have to. So we did that. Maybe I'll answer for that later. Maybe not. But yeah, it's been cool because a lot of different ways that I did not anticipate them being there. They just kind of show up.
And I passed my microphone over to your team. So if you guys have any comments from the team side.
Hi. Yeah.
What's up? This is different.
Hi, my name's Kay Artemis. I graduated from UNC with a PhD in health policy management. Met with lovely people. Thankfully, we're in the same geographical area, so we met at an event last summer, fall-ish, and started working together. And it's been an amazing learning opportunity, simply seeing from the inside how a startup runs, how it gets stuff done, the amount of work and passion that they pour into it, and how they keep the team motivated and working together. I feel like that has been amazing to watch and learn from. So a lot of value there, and just continue to work together so we can make this dream happen.
Hi, I'm Kaylin Barber. I graduated back in 2010 from School of Pharmacy. School of Pharmacy. Did, I guess it's 13 years in independent pharmacy. My dad and I own a small independent in Raleigh. So I would say it almost set me up for the experience we've had over the last year. Not quite, because it's an entirely different one. But Carolina, the networking and like the connections that you actually make, I think that's ultimately kind of what I found with this experience.
They've both like grown in crazy ways as we all have, right? Kay just started to polish her podcast skills at our last convention, where I sprung on her. We're gonna ask patients what their thoughts are on healthcare in general, and get them talking. And you're going to be the one that gets to do that if you're up for it. And it actually turned out really, really well. We got some awesome insights. And then my wife and pharmacist, Kaylin, has gone from like, you kind of do everything there, right? From like setting up devices to learning how to set up shared drive structure to everything that has nothing to do with pharmacy. But when we're starting to work with a pharma company and we're doing a mechanism of action demonstration for hidradenitis suppurativa, and like I have no business writing that from a copywriting perspective. I mean, I know the space, but not well enough to do that. She steps in and writes a speaker program. Well, what was a speaker program? Now it would be something different. But so yeah, it's been cool to see that.
And I remember you telling me about an adventure you all had with cookies. Do you want to share the cookie story?
Yep. So when we started this, we were coming in pretty hot into the end of the year, financially, velocity-wise, like everything. We just started picking up speed, which was great. But everything just moves faster. We have to do this pivot. We decided, okay, we're gonna focus on personal injury attorneys. I had a few advisors that were in that space and had given some really good insight about, you could just move into that market. It's not going to be regulated. It may not. It may be a little bit different in terms of you've got to work with all these different providers, attorneys, as opposed to like larger systems. But so we started doing it sort of abruptly. We were down in, I think we were in Orlando when we made the decision, but did some research. Florida has like twice as many injury litigation suits as any other state. Like, it's not even close. And so like, okay, we're going to Florida. So we're in Florida. We go and decide that I need to get into these offices. So I kind of borrowed from Pharma, and I'm like, cookies or lunch. So we start getting cookies. We're a startup, so it's like you can't do gourmet, but they kind of gotta look gourmet. So then we find ourselves at Publix, like testing the different cookies to see, and it just kind of turned into something that worked. Like we got this operation, like we'd come into a town in Florida, she'd have her boxes ready to go. We'd go raid Publix, we'd stuff boxes, wrap, string and all types of very good looking things that you provided to put on it. You would not want me designing your cookie box. And just walking into law firms with that tablet in my hand and a box of cookies. Just trying to introduce myself, right? Not even that I have to give someone a cold spiel, but introduce ourselves, leave something behind, try to build a relationship. Like the second person that we did it for, they were like, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. Like, we'll send you the scans now, and like you can come back in like a week. And I'm like, that's awesome. So now I'm in Florida for the week. And I think we had planned we were gonna like do Florida, and then we were gonna go to Chicago, and try to do 3 or 4 big cities like back to back. So we had packed for Florida and Chicago and some other non-Florida location. And we'd had like 3 days of luggage, and now we're there for 10, riding around in a rental car around Florida. We're like, well, we might as well do laps. We're here. So we went down to Tampa, where a radiologist is based in Tampa. He has a radiology clinic there and helps us on the side. So we went down there, then went all the way around to Palm Beach and just kind of came up the coast and just hit every major county that has a problem with traffic accidents. And like throughout this time, right, I've learned an awful lot about Publix cookie pricing.
This is weird in action, right?
I swear that Kaylin like single-handedly like reset the pricing, because it was like $3.69 very specifically in every Publix. And then like after 3 days of hitting Publix 4 times and buying out every cookie they had, like the prices went up to like $4.19 or something. So we switched to donuts. We pulled a fast one on. Switched to donuts because those were still like $3. And it was funny. It was like across the board. Maybe they already planned it.
See, Publix
Raise
has
cookie
an
prices.
amazing data analytics machine that they were like, these are going up, and we're gonna.
I mean, it does show the benefit of like digging in. Right? Like, do I need to know the pricing strategy of Publix and the cookies? No. Would I have made those observations, even though they're probably useless? Have I not like been there? Like, let's do it. Okay. Like, what's it look like? Let's go. Let's get the cookies. It's kind of the same thing that I'm finding on like the patient care side, right? Like, get into a doctor's office, see what they have, see what they don't have. Start thinking, okay, how can I make this a happier place to hear whatever news that they're going to hear? You just got to get in there and see it and experience it. At least I do.
Yeah, see it in the real world, to actually be there and being in that patient. You might visualize that later when you're thinking about the patient, when you're thinking about the physician. You're remembering those spaces you were in. But it's also this amazing adventure. Like, I think that's a memorable one.
You call that amazing, right? Those are the words you use.
Maybe not that adjective exactly, but something like that.
Something.
So I just have a couple more questions, and I would like to open the floor. So if you all think of questions that you might have, there'll be 2 questions away. So one of the questions is, how can we help? As a community of people here, is there anything that you're looking for in terms of next step of what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of content that we're starting to release online, etc. We've got LinkedIn going, starting to pick up now that we've had a chance between building the product and now we can do something else too. We're trying to get a handful of clinics to work with us on a free trial beta. Basically we'll make it free and easy for them. They can try it for 2 weeks, a month. I would like to sit down and pick a milestone that matters to them, right? And then it's free until we get to that milestone, but really just looking for that. So if you have connections, colleagues, it is quite an upgrade, right? You get to get rid of the CD-ROM or the CD burner. It's stored in the cloud. We have a HIPAA implementation of an S3 server that does malware scanning and a lot of other stuff that my head of engineering would have to talk to you about. But it's real time, right? And people can see different elements of their body. We've struggled so there's obviously not an insurance code for it yet, right? There's probably some existing ones someone could make an argument for. But we're willing to do it for free as we kind of go through that. We've got some really good exposure from a concierge healthcare clinic that's here. So I think that they're going to do it. I'll find out this weekend. But yeah, really just, it's not easy rolling up in a hospital, completely fish out of water. You don't want to disturb the people that are there. Everyone's busy as hell, trying to save people. And, that's not the right approach, but there's, it's hard to do things like this, right? If you don't have the name of a big Fortune 500 company. So yeah, if there's one thing, if anyone feels ambitious with their support, would love to talk more about that or introductions to someone that you know. If anyone's struggling with an ongoing condition and they haven't been able to see it real well, happy to scan your imaging records for you for free if that's of interest also. That's all I can offer at this time then. But yeah, thanks for asking.
You're also in the midst of the funding round as well, or
very dry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, we are going to Venture Connect next week. We got invited to pitch on stage. It will likely be the start of a much larger funding round. We wanted to get to a place where we at least have 80% of product market fit. We won't know until we get in there. That's what the clinics are for. But if we can get 6, 7, 8 more clinics in there and spend 3 months actively building it around radiologist feedback, patient feedback, physician feedback, oncologist feedback, all the different things, you could really make something killer. And no disrespect to anywhere that I've worked in the past, but a lot of times it's like that triangle of fast, well, and expensive, and you're gonna have to choose 2 of those. A lot of times people just choose one, try to make it work, but this is a chance to kind of do it the right way. We don't have mountains of overhead. We don't have tons of previous contracts that may or may not have gone the way that we wanted them that we're trying to cover. We've got a really passionate team of 10 of us now, 11 counting intern / part-time worker, that really wants to help. So, yeah.
Great. And so